cultural practices and pest management updates on soybeans. How many soybean growers are here? And how many want to grow soybeans? Not everybody. Well, there's a few things on beans that we've changed. If you don't grow beans, maybe I can convince you to start growing beans because they are nice in rotation, and they do add about 10 bushels to your corn crop if you rotate with beans. So it's pretty much a no-brainer. If you're not doing it, you should consider that. I'll go through some cultural practices, and then I'll update on weed, disease, and insect, and then I'll finish up with some of our trials that we did this year down at Lake. When we first talked about beans, one of the questions is, how much do you run in the ground? What do you need to drop out of the planer? It used to be years ago we would recommend drop 180, 200,000 to have a final stand of 150. But that's changed. We're dropping that down to 100 to 125 final stand with 140 to 170 drop. So and the reason for that is a lot of this has been supported, but when you look at populations from 100 to 250, you don't see a dramatic change in yield based on population. So these soybeans are pretty articulate crop that can adjust the populations by sending out branches and doing some other things. And we did look at trying to manipulate some branching with Cobra. We couldn't get that to work very well, but we're looking that way. So what you want to end up with is somewhere between 100 and 125,000 plants per acre when you're running the combine. So depending on whether you use a drill, what your pest complex is, where you're going with these beans, you need to make sure you got that established. A lot of people were concerned about this, so we took it to the on-farm network. We have a group of growers that we replicate things with, and they all have equipment that's got GPS capability with combine yield monitors and really come up with some decent information in strip trials. So when you take the concept of dropping 140 versus 170,000 plants per acre, and you take it out on 2 to 4 acre blocks, you can pretty much see what's going on when you replicate that in the field. So we did that. This is from 2009. So the blue would be the low population, and the red would be the higher population. This is what would be dropped out of the planer. Okay? So if you look at all of the different sites that we ended up getting data on, at the end of the day, there was no difference in the yield between them. But what does a bag of seed cost these days? What are you paying for a bag of soybeans? $55 a bag. 55, 60 bucks a bag. So if you titrate that out and figure out what it costs you per thousand, it's a pretty significant amount. So if you can drop 20,000 out of that, you can certainly save that. So a lot of growers have dropped their populations to pay for the cost of the seed treatment. So that's why pretty much 80 to 90% of growers now are using a seed treatment on their soybeans, whether it's Acceleron, Cruiser Max, Trilex plus Gaucho, or any of those kind of combinations. Well, one thing I'll draw your attention to is that in Dauphin County, if I can get my laser to work, this site here, you'll see that it was reversed with a higher population out yielded the lower. And when you look at the populations at the end of the year, the Dauphin site was, the lower population was far below our 100,000 mark. So that's your teeter. If you're under 100,000, you're losing yield. You have to have that up above 100. So, moral of the story there. Now, as far as loss, overall, we're losing about 20% of what we drop. So if you're dropping 150,000, you're going to lose about 30,000 roughly plants per acre. And I will also say that all these sites did use a seed treatment. So those seeds are pretty well protected. My observation in my site in Lebanon was that with a coated seed, you get much less cracks when it's bobbing out of the planer. I think you don't see near as many splits with soybeans because they're pretty sensitive. If you get to be brutal with a bean, you're going to hurt the germ. So 140 or above. I mean, you can put 275,000. I don't care how much money you want to spend, but at a minimum, 140 to 170,000 is pretty much where we want to be. The other part of it is there's been some folks talking about planting date on soybeans. And it's not a clear shot of exactly how bees respond to planting date. But in general, that first week in May is sort of the magic time. You do lose some yield, but in general, even at as late as June 10th in our area, we're still getting almost 90% of our yield in June. So we have a nice wide window that we can put beans in and still maintain our yields. A lot of folks are looking at these early plantings in late April. And there is some yield benefit there, but I think it all depends. If you can get your beans all in the ground in 2 days, there's really no reason to rush it to get them in. You need to get your corn first and then get back on your beans. You're not going to have that much hit from that side. If you do go with the earlier ones, you definitely should be looking at a seed treatment, whether it contains Acceleron plus Poncho, Trilex plus Gaucho, or the Cruiser Max treatment. Soybean bean leaf beetles. If you're the first guy on the block planting beans, you're going to have these come in first. They overwinter in your tree lines, and the beans that are up first will migrate about a mile from their overwintering site. So if you're the first guy that has beans up, you're going to attract a lot of those insects into the field. So if you don't use a seed treatment, then you've got to use a pyrethroid insecticide to take those out early. Another big discussion is always what to grow with, put beans in, and it's not as clear as corn. I mean, they respond differently as you go through the season. So as you plant in April, you can get away with 30-inch beans, but as you get into mid-May, we lean towards 15s, and if you're in June, you're into 7-inch rows or narrow row beans. The reason that we get a little confused with this is that the information and the data we get is confusing, because sometimes you get studies like this. This is over a 3-year period, and we have 7-inch rows, 15-inch rows, and 30-inch rows. This is at Landisville, and you look at, okay, 15s look like they have an advantage there. You do it a couple more years. This is 2 years of data, and you have 7 versus 15. So now you have also, not only is it based on planting date, but also environmental conditions. So it's not really clear. I can tell you that if you've ever calibrated a drill versus the planter is a much easier machine, and those of you who've done this, I just don't like the metering systems on some of these drills. But when you look at yield, because of the bean's versatility, yield sacrifices are pretty small depending on what you choose. Like I said, on 30-inch rows, a lot of growers that have every year, if you have a white mold issue, if you don't know what that is, I don't have time to go into the details, but they look like little rat turds in the stem. They turn white cottony looking material there. If you've got that particular disease in your field, it's there for 5 years, so you'll fight this disease. No-till helps with it. But 30-inch rows allows more air movement through the canopy, and that will aid in less infection by the white mold spores. Split rows is pretty much where a lot of the trend is going with 15-inch rows. That's kind of, if you had to pick a planter to do both things, you could get a corn planter with 15-inch splitters on there and do a good job with soybeans. I think if you're mainly a double crop, we did a soybean workshop last week, 2 weeks ago in Franklin County. There was a grower that was strictly barley followed by soybeans. He gets close to 60 bushel beans, he gets close to 100 bushel barley, plus he sells the straw. That's a decent crop rotation for income. And if you're in that scenario, then I think a drill would probably be the best for your operation. So there's a lot of factors that you've got to consider when you're looking at raising beans and rotations that might make some economic sense. Variety selection, you're off on that. In our test, you could be off 18 bushels just by your variety selection. So you really got to work with your seed dealer to come up with what's going to be the best variety in your farm. Might take a little trial and error to figure out what maturities you like to do or how you want to split your maturity. A lot of the growers are going to more early maturities of soybeans because they feel that they're catching the rains at the right time with those. So that's a little bit of playing around, but you really got to look at these varieties because that's 18 bushels is a significant amount just based on one selection of the variety. Cover crops, 80% of our soybean contest winners use a cover crop in rotation with soybeans. And it's been well established in Ohio. Indiana did some work where they got about 5 bushel response from wheat in rotation. That's where they terminate the wheat, plant the soybeans. John Yoakum actually did some work back in 2001 where he looked at no treatment, and he had rye, wheat, ryegrass, oats, and timothy. And you know, if you look at this, basically any selection of a rotational crop had some kind of yield problem. $3 bushels at $12 beans. If you use an economic cover crop like wheat or rye, you'll get that back.
That's beans planted into no-till in the cover, green cover or dead cover?
Dead cover. Yeah, these are terminated.
2 weeks prior?
Yeah, it would have been 2 weeks prior to planting. And John, the reason our yields are low at latest is because he was always on the late side, getting things in. Because he would burn down in late April, early May. By the time he got these beans planted, it was like the end of May. And Layersville tended not to get the rains as a lot of the over by mainline then, so it's a little different that way. But there's a response there. And so it's similar to what Ohio found last year. They published it in the Agronomy Journal. It's about a 5 bushel increase with the wheat. They used wheat on all of their trials. So that's something I would consider. From a weed management perspective, you know, when the glyphosate market came into play, that was, you know, you could just basically spray once and be done. But Bill Kern did this back in 2004, and I thought it was interesting because he left an untreated check, he didn't spray anything, and then he came and he burned down. He did a 1-week treatment, 2-week, 3-week, 4-week. The highest yield came where he did a Roundup with a residual followed by a post-application. So this was Syngenta had done some work. They showed about 6 to 8 bushel response with a 2-pass system. So if you're no-till with soybeans, consider a 2-pass system where you use some residual product in that mix in order to get some kind of yield benefit. Weeds are really a critical part. Just a moment on the concept. I know most of you guys already know this stuff, but you got to start clean. That burn down of Remoxone or glyphosate is your tiller. So if you were chisel disking, leveling the field, and planting it, you were eliminating all the weeds. When you use glyphosate or Remoxone, that's your tillage. So you're going through and cleaning that off. And if you've got a delay in planting because you get 6 inches of rain and it keeps you out for 3 weeks, the field greens up again. Rather than tilling it, you can go back out and retreat it. And I would do that. If you had called me and said, hey, I burned down in April and now it's mid-May, do you think I ought to spray it again? I'd say yes. Smoke it, start out clean, and start from there. Now, once those weeds start to come up, you really want to have them controlled, and as I said, if you use a residual in there, you'll have less weed competition. Then you can come in and clean them up later within a 5-week period after the weeds are in. Make sure you target those annual weeds while they're small. I think some of the, lamb's quarters now is resistant to glyphosate, but I think a lot of that was because we're spraying it too late. And I have some pictures of some guys spraying with glyphosate where the weeds are actually dragging wait until this stuff gets real hairy. So don't do that. If you're going to cheat early than late, you can even use a residual product in that second pass that would get you through the canopy, but consider that. Big weeds are harder to kill, so as these weeds get tall in nature, they start to harden a little bit. They're a little bit more difficult to kill, so then you got to also use maybe a different surfactant package to make sure you can get enough kill on it. If you're putting all your money in one basket and you think you can spray it once, I think that's risky. I'd rather see you spread it out and consider that pre-treatment so that it opens that window up. So if you can't get in, you don't have as many weeds to deal with as if you were relying all on that second pass. So anything, if you're probably going to hear a lot of this winter on resistance management. We have weed problems. I mean, if you look at this list of resistant weeds that we have in our region right now, it's growing. I think probably, I can't remember, maybe we had 3 or 4 of these 10 years ago. So because of our reliance on certain chemistries, and you're always using the same products, we're getting this kind of resistance. I never would have thought that we'd have resistant chickweed to Harmony Extra, but we have the Lancaster. So this is a list of things that we're going to have to add different things to the tank in order to eliminate those particular weeds. There's quite a list of options in soybeans that you can refer to the agronomy guide for a lot of these options, and you can mix or match, and a lot of this stuff you can play with. But when you looking at pre-products that provide some 3 to 5 weeks of control, you have authority products, canopy type products, Python, Centor, an old product, still works fine. Sharpen, if you want to pick up a few grasses in there, you also have a whole host of products there. And don't forget about products like Dual, and also other things like the old Frontiers that are labeled in soybeans that give you some broadleaf and a lot of grass control. You know, inexpensive products like Prowl, H2O. A lot of the soybean contest folks use Prowl H2O. It's a pretty economical treatment, and it gets a pretty broad spectrum amount of weeds that gives you that long window that you can come back in and spray. When we look at the bang for your buck, if you're looking at products like Canopy, that probably has the most broad spectrum control of weeds. And you move down the list and you get Spartan, Valor, Metribuzin, Python, Scepter, Prefix. They probably have the most narrow control of weeds. So you might pay a little bit more. Now some of these are offered generically that you can get that way, but you won't get any service part of it. If you buy the generic stuff, then you're not going to have a warm body that can help you if there's a problem. Let's skip over the Liberty Link is something that's being talked about in the product. They changed the name from Liberty to Ignite, and the soybeans are resistant to that. And it's similar to glyphosate resistance in soybeans, but it allows you to use Ignite, which is the old Liberty. And we looked at some yield differences there, and we didn't find any between the glyphosate. So the problem with the Ignite is it's expensive. I mean, that's probably the biggest issue with the Ignite, but the other problem is it's more like Remoxone. Ignite is a burden. So the weed height has to be small to get a good enough coverage to kill the plant. And if you're going to have a failure, it's because you've got rain and it allowed those weeds to grow 6 inches in a week or so, and now you can have a failure. It's not like glyphosate where most times you can get a little variation. Disease update. This year with our on-farm plots, we actually had 14 growers in different counties that we just got Contigo YLD, which is a similar product to Quilt. You're familiar with Quilt. And pretty simple design. up having 26 site replications, and the average over all of those replications was a yield increase of 2.3 bushels per acre. So you would have thought in a wet year we would have got more of a bump that way. But does that, and last year we got about 3.5, 3.9 bushels per acre. So this year we got 2.3. So Iowa State did 500 sites and they got about 2.7. So you're going to get maybe 3 bushels out of this fungicide if applied in R3. And does that pay? Well, the engineers tell me if you run through that field when the boom's out at 60 feet, you'll lose 2.5 bushels running the bean boom. Plus the cost of the product, if you pay a custom applicator, so you've got, you know, it's a wash. You know, really, economically, I'm not sure it's really something that's there. A lot of growers are combining a fungicide and an insecticide, so that might make a difference. But at this point, with just the fungicide side, I think we're probably going to settle on about 3 bushels is what you figure might be the response. So a lot of growers have been doing this over the past 4 to 6 years, widespread fungicide application. And it's been promoted pretty widely, and now we have resistance to the strobilurium fungicide with frog eye. Frog eye is a particularly bad disease in soybean. It can knock yields 25–30% pretty easily. We don't see a lot of it around here. It's here in the region. But now that we have this strobilurium, you know what a strobilurium is? Probably you probably heard a headline. That's a strobilurium. So we've got this resistance issue. So it's something that, you know, and the problem with disease is it's not like weeds. If you have an outbreak of burr cucumber in your field, you're going to know about it. Because you'll see it, and it's going to grow over top of everything. When you get an outbreak of a disease, and it misses it, it doesn't jump out at you until much later. And it's usually way too late to do something about it. So if you spray it and you don't think you've got resistance, it's later on that you see it. So it's much more difficult to manage as far as seeing and trying to determine what to do after. So we've got to start looking at rotating not only our herbicides for resistance, but also now our fungicides. Looking at using mixtures of triazoles and strobilurium fungicides. So I think at this point, for fungicide applications in soybeans, you look at the field and see what's going on in the field. And if you've got it moving up into the upper canopy of the soybeans, that top third, that's probably when you're going to get the biggest bang for your buck. If you don't have any disease present at R3, then we probably don't need that treatment. Here's a listing, and these are just name-brand ones. It's not the generic packages that are out there, but you can get generics for most of these. But anything with the N sisters, pyraclostrobin, azoxystrobin, tetraconazole, that's a different one. These two are the same. Those are the strobilurium fungicides. The triazoles have an OLE at the end. Okay? So these are pretty widely available. They're in the agronomy guide, and you can tell which one they are. And you can get these products that have both in it. So you get both a trizole and a strobilurium together. So that would help with the resistance management. Okay, moving on to insects. Bean leaf beetles is one that, as I mentioned earlier plantings, when you get them, they look kind of like a rootworm beetle. And they have much different colors. And this is just 4 of them. You can see even yellow kind of looking ones. But they all have this entomologists who have nothing else to do in their life, they look at these insects in the winter, and they took them out and they cut the manure out, and they found a virus in there called the mottle virus. And so over the winter, their last feeding, they eat soybeans, they get this virus in their gut, and it grows over the winter. And then when they come out in the spring onto the earliest planted guy, right? March 1st, he gets his beans, they're out of the ground. They feed, they make these shot holes, and they poop that first plug out, which is loaded with this virus. And it infects the soybean, and it grows through the whole life of that soybean. And where I caught onto this thing is a few years ago, I had 4 or 5 growers come in and say, hey, I'm combining these beans, the stalks are green, and the pod is brown. And they're tough. Something's got to be going on. Well, I sent them out to Indiana, and sure enough, they're all positive for bean pod mottle virus. So what you'll see, you get the combine, and you get the green stem and the brown pods. And that's when you need to send them in. We had 12 cases in Franklin County that were sent that were positive. So it's here. And the management of this is actually pretty simple. If you use a seed treatment like Cruiser, Poncho, or Gaucho on the seed, that takes care of this particular pest. So that's something to consider. Now, the adults, this is the different feeding damage, but the bee leaf beetle adult here is this red line. So typically that first, second week in May, they're high. Then they drop off. The larva feed, again, we don't have any research on it. I think that's something we need to look at. And then they spike, guess what? You plant your double crop soybeans, the first ones that come up, these bee leaf beetles migrate into those fields. The only good thing is they don't have the virus, or very few of them have the virus at that time, so they don't transmit it that second time. It's mainly that first. Now, if we have heavy populations, they'll feed on the pots, and then they inject, they open a site that you can get secondary diseases. So you'll get these beans that really look kind of ugly and shriveled up later on in the season. The vegetative growth is reduced. And when you first are out in the field looking at this, it looks a little bit like Banville injury. Anybody seen Banville injury on beans? They start to crinkle and cup. Very similar to this particular disease. 10 to 40% yield reductions in the field, so it's a pretty significant pest to be watching. Okay, I'm going to breeze through this worm-rated stink bug. You probably, how many have heard of these already? Do I have to spend a lot of time on them? They're a problem. One dies and 10 come to the funeral. And they migrate out. There's other species of these stink bugs, but this one's a wimp. So once it hits about 53 degrees, they start heading to the house. They start coming into people's garages and everything else. But I think they're here. They're in the fabric of our society now. And I think they're here to stay. This is the current map that Dr. Tucker pulled off of the spread. So it's pretty well moved throughout the country. You see some states are without it, but I think it's only a matter of time until they get filled in. They're a problem. You know, we send a lot, China buys a pile of our soybeans, and they send these stink bugs back. So, first in 96, and we had the first record populations in 01, and we're going to be fighting these for quite some time. This is what they look like. This is the eggs, and they're a little different than a lot of other insects because they have this little black casing right at the end of that egg. And then they hatch out within a couple days, and you'll see these clusters of them. Now the good thing is, at this stage of the game, they're pretty localized. So they're going to be in that area of the field, and you can treat it. And they usually come from the edge. So if you see them at this age, you can treat the edge of the field and prevent them from going into the field. And you're all right doing that method all the way through the first, second, third, fourth, and the fifth install. But once those know you're coming after the killer. So, but once they get those wings, they can be mobile. So a lot of times secondary applications happen because we've got these things that fly away 4 or 5 days later, the insecticide wears down, and they fly back in here. So that's a challenge that we'll have to address. Here's some of the sisters of this particular insect. You have green stink bugs, soldier beetles. This is actually a beneficial one. But the key on this stink bug is looking at those white bands here. This is a brown one. These usually don't really become too much of an issue, but if you see this one in here, that's the marmorated stink bug. So we had quite a few of these that kind of got through this year. The populations really didn't spike till later on, but we had a fair amount of pod feeding, and then we ended up with a lot of these kind of beans that had purple stain and circospora because these beetles fell. How you doing? Good to see you. So we have a scouting program that we did this year where we looked at 38 fields in 9 counties on a weekly basis and just went through and looked and stuff to see where the thresholds are. The threshold was 20 of these stink bugs per 100 sweeps. So if you can break that down to 10, about 2 and 10, you have 2 and 10 sweeps, and that would be considered threshold. So in July we didn't find anything, and we had some in late July that we had some on the outside edges that were treated with bifenthrin, which is brigade. In August we had reports of increasing populations in the scouted fields. Late August, 2 fields exceeded the threshold and were sprayed by the farmer. Two fields in New York out of the 38. So we're not talking a huge amount out of the 38 fields. We're only treating a couple. And that they had threshold, but they chose not to spray. When they look at, Dr. Tucker did a study here, and I don't have the data from Pennsylvania, but this is Galen Dively's work down in Maryland. And he looked at several different insecticides to see which is the best to try to kill these plants. And basically your pyrethroids are the ones you want to stay with. Brigade bifenthrin was the one that had probably the most activity. But you can see here's baythroid. Another one that was pretty effective was this lambate. But Lorspan is pretty much out of the mix. So currently, we're seeing a scout. Look at the edge of the field in July, see what's going on, and as those thresholds get up, if they get up over that 20 per 100, then you need to consider treatment, and you might have to do it twice if you've got adults that have wings on them. Okay, here's another one that's coming up that'll be here probably in the next year. Is the bean plasmid, and it feeds on kudzu vines, and then it moves into soybean. So this will be the next one we'll have to deal with. It's almost very similar to the marmorated stink bugs. Very prolific. The females lay about 400 eggs per female. That's what makes the marmorated stink bug so prolific, is its egg laying capacity compared to the green and the brown. They're just about almost double the amount the females will lay. But this is one that's kind of a fat, globular, looks like almost like a thumb, and that's one that's moving up. It started out in Georgia, and very quickly it spread to the north. So their feeling is it's just going to follow the kudzu, and we have kudzu in Pennsylvania, so they'll probably follow this border right up to here in the next couple of years. One of the things that we try to do is look at some other products that are out there. There's been a lot of interest in some of these. So this is an example. It's very challenging. This is Iowa State's data on use of BioForge, and this is the treated versus the BioForge product in there. They got about a bushel response on their site. seeing some kind of response there. This is 4 replications down at Landisville. So we had a CV value. This is the measurement. If it's over 10 to 15, the data is not very good. 6.5 means that we did pretty good as far as our research, but we didn't see any huge bumps in yield. We got a response there. We just can't really identify that as significant. A little bit too much noise. So with BioForge, that's kind of where we're at. We couldn't get it statistically significant. Kind of like Iowa, when you get a bushel, is it there or not? We also looked at molybdenum, and again, we couldn't get a significant response out of it. We used Apron Max by itself, Apron Max plus Molly, and then Molly and water, just put on the seed with just straight water. And again, this would be considered our standard, and we just did not see a bump significant enough to say that it's going to do something.
What was the pH on that?
6.4. So we wouldn't expect it a huge. It's tough to find. You try to get a field that tests out below 6, but then you take a test in the spring and it's 6.4, and what do you do? We try to do this mainly on light ground. The other thing we did is we put it out on 2-acre blocks, some big blocks with a yield monitor that we could get some mapping from. And again, we could get a little bit of a bump there, but again, it's not significant. So we see a correlation that there's something there. This field was a farmer's field 11, and his pH was 6.2. So we still didn't get as much of a bump as we wanted. The other thing we wanted to look at is, can we get a bump out of beans if we spray with Cobra? And there was another product, it's a dairy manure extract that they wanted us to look at. So we put that out this year, and this was our base untreated check at 50, and you can see we got no response at all. So the only thing I'll say is the Cobra, we burned them pretty good, and they regenerated. And our idea was to try to get more branches. But we got rain, about 3 inches of rain, like the day after we put this stuff on, and I think it just flushed out, and we didn't get much branching at all. And I thought, I used 6 ounces per acre, which is a lower rate of Cobra, and I went with crop oil concentrate to try to get as much burn as I can. And I thought maybe I could have gotten a little bit more burn if we had more sunny weather at that point. We also looked at potassium, looking at to see if we could get a response out of that. Here's a control at 60 bushels. We put a removal rate on beans of 120 pounds of K2 at planting, so this would be blown on just before planting. We also did it blown before planting, followed by a foliar product, which is Coron, which is a 10-0-10 foliar product at a gallon per acre. We also did foliar by itself, and then we did K2O at flower. So we did the dry product at flower. So here's a control, and again, we didn't get any bump there. For some reason, this year was just really tough to get any kind of response from the treatment.
Did it help the test weight there, or your test weight was a little higher than the previous slide?
It wasn't significant, but here's the average test weight in the control, and as we go through here. And the only thing I'm really bummed about is that these beans were fit in September, but we got so much rain we couldn't get in, and then it was late October, first week of November, until I got all these plots out, and they were really overripe by that time. So I'm thinking we lost probably 10 bushels, 15 bushels sitting in the field for a month and a half. And I'm sure some of you had the same frustration, but it's been a challenge. So I think right now, if you are looking at some of these alternative products, see if they have some alternative third-party data. There are some of this on your own place. At least do 2 to 3 check strips. It's easy to get testimonial from a guy that did 1 strip in the field and say, I got 10 bushels out of it. But usually if you have 3 strips in that field, then if it's repeatable, then you got something going on. So that's kind of where I'm at. So, are there any questions?
The Chinese aphids, did you run into many of them?
Not this year. No, I don't know nobody knows exactly what happened to them. We were supposed to get them, but they didn't come down from New York like they had. And they were all set up at Cornell to do a bunch of research on them, and they never came to the show.
Well, we had some.
You did?
But beans were already in the almost mature.
By the time they
Well,
got them in.
by the time that they got high enough numbers and been doing the bottom, they were pretty thick.
Yeah. But the entomologist can't figure out exactly what happened that they did not swing around and come in a huge amount. So, yeah, we were kind of primed and ready for